Second step, ladies, is to pin your zipper tape to the seam allowance. You can see that I've not sewn through or pinned through, just here. So now I've got my zipper foot on. And again, how do you put it on? You just loosen the clamp, take off the other foot. It goes on just like so. Tighten it up. And then by using the green piece, that's what moves it back and forth so I can line it up. Always, and this is so important if you don't want to get a needle in the eye, because that has actually happened in here. Always make sure your needle is threaded first. So I'm going to line it up, my needle that is, above the 8-inch mark, which is this pin right here. It's line it properly. I can now tighten my foot. Make sure it goes through. Yes, it does. Make sure I'm on straight lines, 2.5. I'm going to take out that pin because I don't need it now. And I'm going to sew. I'm going to back stitch. Why am I having so much trouble here? Move it over just a bit. There we go. Now we're on the move. And I'm going to go all the way to the top. Now I'm not going to go any further than the zipper head. So I'm going to stop here, but no back stitching. I'm going to show you a trick after. Okay, I'm going to take this side off, cut it, and now I'll do the exact same thing on this side. So again, pin it only through the seam allowance. It's so important, you guys, because this is just here to hold it in place so that when you do your top stitching, it works. All right, so now it's just easier for me to go from this side now. But again, no back stitching up here. We only back stitch at the bottom, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to start up here, press her foot down, needle down. I'm going to sew, no back stitching. And I'm sewing through that seam allowance as well as my zipper tape. And I'm only going that far. Hopefully this side's back stitching is a little bit nicer looking than the other side. Reverse and back down. Now, the top is not secure because there's no back stitching, correct? So what we need to do is I'm going to move the zipper head out of the way. So I'm going to push it out of the way, back to where I already had my sewing. Now I've freed up that space. Now I can go up at the top and actually do my back stitching. So watch what I do here. I start in my old sewing. So I've got lots of space now. Make sure that needle goes directly into the old. Oh, no, I need to be a little bit further over. So up to the top. And back stitch. Same thing to the other side. Take it off. Use the shears because I'm having so much trouble cutting it. Same thing here. So I'll start at the top, back stitch, and then I'm going to connect to the old. And you have to connect, girls, because otherwise it doesn't count and then you have to redo it, okay? So if you look, my zipper is now attached. I've got back stitching down here, and the two guys have lined up. But if you look on this side, it doesn't actually look like I've done any sewing, and that's because my next step is to top stitch, which is going to be the last thing I show you right now. The one thing I'm going to recommend is obviously get rid of some of this thread because it's just going to get jammed on you. And once you guys do it and you start using the zipper foot, you'll see that it's actually not so hard to use. So get rid of all this stuff, and you can clean it up more after. I just want the main stuff out of the way. Top stitching is called top stitching because you're doing exactly that. You're sewing on top. So what I'm going to do is, again, I need to figure out where this mark is. So I've got my chalk here. Use the chalk because it won't make a mark on your stuff. This is my line. Okay. I'm going to put my zipper foot here. I can feel that the layer is there, so I'm good to go. And I'm going to sew down here, pivot back up. So everybody watching? I can feel it. Right now I know I'm going through both layers. And I'm trying to sew very evenly because this is what everybody sees. This would be on the outside of your skirt, if that's what you're making. And always making sure that I can feel that I'm sewing through both layers, because again, it feels like you're sewing a bit blind because you can't actually see it. Now that I'm at my line, I'm going to pivot, so needle in, turn. press your foot down, and I like to use my hand when I do this part because I just find it a little more secure, because sometimes it's scary sewing through something that's heavy. This feels like I'm far enough, so I'm going to go needle, pivot again, and now I'm going to sew up this side. And I'm just going to go as far as my other side. And stop. Now girls, exact same system as what just happened.
Wait, when did you get one?
I'm going to move my zipper head out of the way so that I have space. I'm going to go into my old sewing so that I know that it's lined up perfectly. And you actually get right into that sewing. Put it back down. Up to the top. Now, we all know that we've been having some trouble with our back stitching, so I'm going to recommend pivoting instead. It just makes sure that it's going to be tidy. Pivot back. And I'll do the same thing to the other side. And then we're almost done. So for a zipper, it's actually not as much work as most people think. Now, it's going to be very difficult with this here. So instead I'm going to move this over to the other side. Then I can put this here. I can see where my needle is. Putting my needle down. Oh, I'm not quite there. I'm going to shift it over just a little bit. It's in. Sew up to the top. Pivot back. Pivot back. And now the final step. I go, could you go get a stitch ripper, please? So now you guys can see that it's really tidy because I went over top of it. You can't actually see the sewing. So I'm going to trim these threads because that's the top stitching. When you're done, always handing everything really tidy. We'll get rid of the threads at the top as well and do the back side too. Don't forget, because I'm going to look back here to look at, that's how horrible, right? Last step is to remove that basting. So you take your stitch ripper and being sure just to take out just that stitch. Okay. All the way down. I'm going to move my zipper a little bit further. It's pretty neat, huh? Like, basically, you guys, this is how you put a zipper into anything that you're wearing, right? And now, I'll get rid of all those threads, but now, I have a working zipper. Okay? And that's what you guys are going to do. All right? Thank you.